Okay, folks, so as promised in the last podcast, what makes hip-hop? So, I mean, it's definitely the most popular genre of music that I sell when I sell ringtones. Hip-hop ringtones fly out the door. So it's a really popular genre. So there are 6 essential parts. When you do a sample, you wouldn't use all 6 in a 5 seconds, loop or sample. You'd use bits that would add to these 6 essential parts. So you've got your intro, and your intro sets the tone. So creates anticipation, but also if it's really predictable, that's not going to get you noticed. But certainly, within the first 4 notes, you're probably going to know it's a hip-hop song or not. That's the nature of music, actually. It's true for all genres, to be honest. Then you've got your verse, which contains the lyrics and the hooks. Now, the verse is... You establish the key really well. You establish what the song's maybe about. Is it a love song? Is it a song about the, atomic revolution or whatever? I don't know if that's a typically hip hop subject, to be honest. But your verse contains the hooks anyway. But it doesn't have the big hook. I would say the mini hooks, yeah? And that's what I do when I'm composing something. I think, well, that's quite nice, a bit of a riff thing going on. But it's not as good as the big one that I'm going to use, but it gives us a bit of a tease, okay? So, and then the pre-chorus, which is where the real tension is prepared. That's read. You just know something is going to, you're telling your listener something really exciting is about to happen, i.e. the chorus. It's the chorus that where the action happens. We feel so satisfied, yeah? And the chorus is the central aspect of the song, and it's the catchy and memorable bit that people are going to be drawn to and know the words to. People know the words to the chorus, even if they don't know the words to the rest of the song, usually. Okay, then you create a bridge. Excuse me. This is the transition between the chorus and another verse. So you need a bit of a bridge, because if you went straight into the, a new verse straight after the chorus, you've got no time to breathe. So it's like a musical breath, and however long you decide that should be. It's up to you. I mean, 8 bars should do it, but sometimes it's longer, and sometimes it's a little bit shorter. I mean, if you've got a fast song, you'd usually stick... that's where I stick my solo parts. I don't write hip-hop music, but it's very similar for most types of music, in terms of, popular music. So that's where I usually stick my solos. I'll sit down on the piano and do a quick, speedy solo, or I might get the cello out and put some cello in there. Sometimes I've done stuff with the bass line as well, actually not change the key with the bass, but and not change the rhythm, because that really is difficult to do. I've tried it, but changed the bass to slightly different notes just to add some different texture. That's a little trick I sometimes use. And then you've got your outro, which is the end of the track, with a final verse, or fade out. I mean, I'd usually put my fade out as the outro. So I'd do the verse, but I wouldn't fade that out unless I was going to do it twice and then fade it out. Do you see what I mean? It's kind of standard, really. So chord progressions are your big thing here, and they provide this, this harmonic foundation that we recognise culturally from where we're from. So, I mean, they're pretty standard in all popular music. So, I mean, if you don't understand how it works, a chord progression takes you from one place to another in the song, and the pattern is usually 1, 4, 5. That sounds a bit difficult. but honestly, it isn't. So you basically, a 1-4-5, it's a very versatile progression, and it infuses hip-hop with soulful resonance. I mean, that's what I've written in the blog. It's very popular in hip-hop. So it's another signal to the listener that this is a hip-hop song. It's reliable. It's assured. Do you see what I mean? So in the key of D, that would translate to a D major chord, moving on to a G major chord and an A major chord. Okay, so loads of hip-hop artists use that progression for their melodies and hooks. So you could play that on your piano or write it using, the I don't know what it's called actually. I never use it. I always use the piano. But you can construct the chords on your software and just play. I just play them over and over again and see how it fits with my lyrics and work it out from there. I write by ear always, so pretty much. So another well-used progression actually that adds a unique aura to hip-hop music is experimenting with different scales to create your own progressions. So 2-6-5, that's, an alternative which provides something a little bit different. Coming back to the fifth, I mean, you will know if something works or not. You just know. You just think, oh, that sounds rubbish, or that sounds difficult, or I don't like that bit. If it's immemorable, in other words, if it's too difficult and your listener isn't going to remember it, that might be a problem for your hit. Yeah, pop music isn't about intellectualism. It isn't about difficult music that takes education to engage with. It's almost nursery rhymes. I'd look to some hymns as well. It's really useful to see what progressions hymns use, because they can be quite illuminating. We've just been over in the other podcast all about, using FL Studio, Ableton, is it Ableton or Ableton? I don't know. And Logic Pro. So you do your layers, you sample your selections, and do your, put everything on top of it. But basically, your vocal is probably the most important part of a hip hop track. And if you've been listening to a lot of hip hop, you'll know already that it's the lyric that holds the song up. So sit down and write something. And then if you listen to a load of hip hop artists, choose wisely about who you think might be inspiring you, but don't try and copy them. But you can copy things like their chord progressions, you can copy things like their emotion, but if you start copying their actual voice, if you start trying to impersonate them, that's going to be problematic. You don't want to do that. So you want your own sort of unique way of doing it. And then what I'd suggest is that you play your backing track over on a loop, and you read your lyrics over it to start with. I always click my finger in the drum beat, in time, and speak the lyrics first, and then I start to make them more tuneful, depending on what effect I'm going for. And I do that 20, 30 times. I change words, I get rid of words. That one doesn't fit in the pulse. I can usually fit words in. I have methods. Taking a breath and going to the next bar is a really good thing to do if you can't get all the words in. You don't have to have exact... it's a bit different to poetry. You don't have to have this exact syllables per line in a song. You can be a bit more flexible. And then the other thing that I quite often do is I use a word to give texture. I use the accent on a word to give texture. Or if I'm crossing over two bars with one sentence, I'll accentuate and take a breath in between two of the words that need to, one needs to be on a new bar. So I'll pause the sentence. Do you see what I mean? So I'm always doing things like that. I mean, so quite a lot you can do, but that's just literally listening to the drum beat and, overlaying it until I get the effect that I want. If you're trying to stay close to hip hop, just keep that in mind, because if you start, I do a lot of musical type stuff, so it can be a bit jazz hands, of course, the drama. Sometimes I have to rein the jazz hands in, because you can be quite jazz handsy with a vocal as well, believe it or not, overly dramatic. And I think a lot of hip hop is less. It's kind of it's the level, isn't it, of the delivery of the vocal. It's quite laid back. You see what I mean? So you might have to rein something in, or you might have to give it more life. I don't know. It depends, what you're sounding like. And then, once that's done, I lay down I'd say it was a rough cut of the vocal. And then I think, right, I don't like that bit. That bit, I need to change key. This bit needs to go there. Start chopping it up. And then there's usually something. I remember one of my songs cut off a word. I'm just about to redo it, actually. It was the first track I did of the musical. And I just thought, I can't, I just wanted it up and out. And because I was experimenting with how to distribute my music and what I was going to do with it. I'm going to do all that again, even though I've completely lost the original recording. But, you get good at these things and you learn as you're sort of going along. So if you want to go on to, there are AI tools that, do a whole hip-hop track for you. And do you know what? It's not all bad. Music Star AI is one. Veed's AI rap generator is another. These things, this AI stuff isn't all awful, but you're going to have to do something with it. You're going to have to change some things. You're going to have to step up, And quite often you just think by the end of it, I may as well have just written that myself. But if it's inspired you, I think, why not do that? But you will need to do something exciting with it. There's absolutely no point in giving the public totally 100% AI formulated, content and expect them to enjoy it. It's different if it's funny. I've written some funny ones using AI because I find AI hilarious. But if you want to be taken seriously as a musician, it's going to be pretty hard, isn't it? You might get away with one. I think I'd say that. You'd probably get away with your first. But after that, no, you're not going to be able to pull that off. That's my theory anyway. And of course, the more people that use AI production as in their vocal or their lyrics, the more it's going to become kind of hated and dated. And certainly what you don't want is for your track that you made last week to be dated in a week, or a month or a year. You want to, hits do get dated, don't they, in a couple of months, I suppose. They always did. But, if you got a year out of it, that would be okay. But if you're producing AI stuff, it's almost by the next day it's tired and dated and nobody wants it. So you're really running that risk if you go down that road. So okay, guys, I think that was quite helpful. Yeah, I hope so. It's all on the blog as well, iServalan.com, and you'll be able to re-listen to the podcast as well if you're interested in that. Okay, guys, fare you well.